Culture podcast. I have the huge privilege of being joined by Annie. Annie Sommazzi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well.
Good. I'm really pleased you've agreed to do this podcast. Can you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role?
Sure. So my name's Annie Sommazzi. I'm the Clean Growth and Sustainability Manager here at the two councils. My role is around supporting the councils with their net zero agendas, the environmental strategy more broadly, whatever that necessarily means, and supporting both councils in terms of the wider area to decarbonise. So looking at projects that help reduce carbon emissions across Broadland and South Norfolk.
Can you just share with us some of the key projects that you're currently delivering?
Sure. So I suppose the one that springs to mind is the public sector decarbonisation scheme. So that's a central government funded project. It's administered by a company called Salix, and both councils were awarded something like £2.3 million to support with heat decarbonisation. Now, what does heat decarbonisation mean? Well, practically speaking, that's removing your gas or your oil boilers in certain buildings and then replacing them with non-fossil fuel alternatives. So here at the Horizon Centre, we removed the gas boilers, and we've now got two large air source heat pumps that are sort of doing their thing. And then at Dis Leisure Centre, we removed the gas boiler there. The gas boiler there was ancient. It looked like sort of a retro car from like the 1980s or something. And we installed 3, again, enormous air source heat pumps there. We've also reclad the entire building, installed 122 kilowatt solar array on that building. So that's an enormous project and complex. And we were trying to manage the majority of it while the centre remained open. Within that programme, we also have a temporary housing accommodation in Cossey. So we've got 6 individual flats, and there we've installed ground source heat pumps.
So these ground source heat pumps, they're not really that good, are they?
Well, they're highly efficient. Sometimes people would say that ground source or air source heat pumps don't necessarily work as well as they should do. That's often because they're not sized appropriately for the building. So we did a lot of work before the project to make sure that whatever we were installing was the right size, was going to meet the energy demand, meet the needs of those residents and users.
I was being a bit naughty because I was one of the non-believers until you got the new pumps put into the Horizon Centre. I've just been absolutely bowled over by the performance.
Yeah, they are brilliant. And as I said, we've kind of got one connected fully at the moment, although we have got 2 here. And so hopefully we'll be even more bowled over by the performance when we've got 2 operational. But yeah, it's amazing technology.
So Annie, there'll be lots of people watching this podcast who will go, actually, the environmental ask, and we recognise it, but it's just too big. How do we make a difference? What advice would you give them?
So it's a good question, and it is a challenging one. As an organisation, our emissions are relatively low, especially when you look at emissions that are occurring across the wider district. Around 2 or 3% is what we will be contributing as a local authority. But the point is about embedding an approach to the environmental agenda across an organisation so that you can then go out as a whole corporate body, as a whole organisation to try and influence change across the district. So the point about net zero agendas, it's not just me, it's not just Kirsty and Neve in my team who are trying to reduce our emissions. It's about a whole council approach. It's about mobilising the entire organisation to try and make a difference. So that means that when we're making decisions about temporary housing accommodation, or we're making decisions about how we dispose of waste, we are thinking about emissions, we're thinking about the environment, and so that it becomes something that everyone does, it becomes embedded in all of the decisions that we take, and it's not just 1 or 2 people's jobs within the authority.
Yeah. And there's a big leadership role for us as an organisation?
Absolutely. So the ability that we have as a district council to make a difference and to change how other organisations view the environment, that's a massive role to play. And we see that in work that we're doing. And we are looking at how we engage with town and parish councils in terms of things like carbon literacy, running training courses for those town and parish councils to support them with their own agendas. We're looking at how we engage with businesses to support them with what they do. So it's not just about sort of reducing your own emissions in your own buildings. It's about doing that, understanding the process, and then going out and supporting others with that journey.
So touching on leadership, I've got 5 daughters and a stepdaughter. And I was really, really amazed as my daughters started to grow and go into the workplace that they were playing back to me, Dad, it's really hard to be a young woman in the workplace. So one of my daughters would go into meetings that she was chairing, and the presumption from others in the meeting was, oh, you're here to take the notes, aren't you?
Yeah.
So as we're heading towards International Women's Day, you're a leader with a massive agenda driving that environmental change for us. What advice would you give, and what's your insight as a woman in a leadership position?
I could talk about this forever.
I won't.
No, I won't.
Absolutely do.
So it's really cheesy. So, but I would say to try and be as authentic to who you are as you can. So don't try and mold yourself into what you think a woman in leadership or a leader should look like. So, I mean, as you can see by the way that I dress and the way that I am, I haven't tried to model that on a man or on a stereotypical leader. Yeah. I've just tried to be myself and to try and embrace that as much as possible. And I know that's really cheesy, and that does come a little bit with experience. And I still have it. We still see it in the workplace. This is genuinely a really good workplace to be as a woman in leadership, and as a woman who is looking to move into a leadership role. But you still have moments where people look at you and you can see they're thinking, are you supposed to be in this meeting, or are you doing this as work experience? And I have had it in previous roles where I'll go into a meeting, I'll chair the meeting, I'll lead the meeting, I'll speak with relative authority in what I'm doing. And then someone will ask, like one of my male colleagues, if they are my manager. That has happened, recently. It's not a rare occurrence. But my advice would be don't let those things get you down. It seems frustrating at the time, but you just sort of need to be proud of who you are and kind of convinced that is the right person to go into the meeting as, not try and model yourself on sort of a man leadership style. Or
without a shadow of doubt, you have a reputation and a persona within the organisation that everybody recognises, and they recognise you as a strong leader, particularly driving the environmental agenda. Now, you used to work for us for a little while, stepped away. What made you come back?
I mean, part of the reason that I came back was that there's so much opportunity in working across 2 district areas. So as an organisation, there was a huge amount of ambition that sat within both councils, but particularly when it comes to the environmental agenda, to be able to work, geographically across such a large area gives the ability to kind of deliver change or to make change on a scale that is really quite unique. So for me, that was a really exciting opportunity. I genuinely have a huge amount of affection for the organisations. So coming back has been a privilege, sort of professionally, in terms of being able to deliver this agenda for the 2 councils, or start to deliver this agenda for the 2 councils. But also has been a privilege because I get to work with so many people that make every day not feel like I'm having to get up and go to work and it's a chore. Most days, I'm going to say most days, are genuinely a delight.
Good.
Yeah.
You're a big character within the one team, and the culture of how we work is really, really important. How would you describe the culture, and how do you think we need to influence it?
So I suppose as an anecdote to kind of to give that context, I always remember that you say bring yourself to work. I wasn't sure for when you first started saying that whether you actually meant that, and then I thought I'm just gonna bring myself to work. So I remember once bringing in a pair of slippers, and Phil Courtier looking at me and saying,
I can't believe you would say that.
He did, on record. And then, as another good example, I remember I cycled into work not that long ago. You might remember this day.
Yeah.
Both me and Kirsty and my team cycled to work. It was absolutely pouring with rain. For some reason, I hadn't really thought through the logistics of rain and cycling, and I had no shoes. And I remember I walked around the corner over here, sort of trying to tiptoe past, and you popped your head out of the office, and Emma Hodds popped her head out of the office, and everybody just looked at me and laughed because I was completely barefooted. I was completely soaked. And I remember Emma lent me her shoes for the day. And I thought, this is such a nice organisation to work for, where you can sort of walk in looking like a drowned rat. And someone will share their shoes with you, and then so I think it's a culture where people look out for each other. I think it's an organisation where people laugh. You walk around the building, people are laughing, people are supportive. The other thing that I would say is people work really, really hard. If you take the team that I'm in economic growth, everybody works really hard, everyone's determined, everyone's passionate about what they do. And that's not because somebody's saying, you should work hard and, you should be determined and passionate about what you do. People work hard because they're motivated. People are working hard because they care about the things that they do. We believe that we're making a difference. We believe that we're working to make our residents' lives better, more fulfilled, so on a kind of jokey note, there is a seriousness that sits within the culture, which is of kind of hard working, but off the back of feeling motivated because we care about what we do.
I've been amazed at the impact moving to this building seems to have had on the culture, because the place buzzes. I don't think people are anything other than relaxed, but really interested in your point of view. Since we've moved here, has that helped?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, I was a little bit sceptical about the building itself. I kind of thought it used to be a call centre. I was kind of, worried about how it would work. And I absolutely love it here. I think it's brilliant. I think the building is brilliant. I think the sort of the spaces that are there to support kind of teamwork are excellent. And I would say that, again, people seem to be, on the most part, happy to come to work. And that is a huge achievement. From a personal point of view, the building itself, now we've got air source heat pumps in. Yeah. It's pretty much operationally net zero. And so I get my own little bit of joy about coming to work in that respect as well.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. If you're looking forward, what are your aspirations for the future?
In an ideal world, in an organisation where we've really sort of completely nailed the environmental agenda, and we're absolutely 100% certain that we're going to achieve our net zero targets, that we're going to be able to support decarbonisation sort of in the most sort of perfect way possible, my role and my team wouldn't exist.
Wow. Well, that's an ambition, isn't it? My ambition is my team doesn't exist. Did you share that with them before you came to do the interview?
I did not. But seriously, in an ideal world, these types of roles should just be totally embedded in what we do. So I don't know what that role or what this type of role looks like in 4 or 5 years' time. Now, obviously, they're going to evolve and they're going to change. The challenge is enormous. Net zero isn't easy. The climate change agenda is only going to increase. The pressures that we see globally as a result of climate change, those things are only going to increase. So these roles and their prevalence within organisations is only going to increase. But in an ideal world, the responsibility for this agenda should sit so clearly and so neatly in everybody's roles that actually these teams shouldn't have to exist.
So that is a really, really good point for me to say, look, you're speaking to the whole organisation now. Mm-hmm. So speaking to the whole organisation, what's your ask of all of us?
Is it going to cause emissions? Is it bad for the environment? If the answer to those things are yes, how can you do it differently? What does that look like? And if you don't know, then come and speak to us.
Annie, that's brilliant. Thanks so much for your time today. Thanks very much for being an inspirational female leader. And I really look forward to having this podcast played out in the organisation so the whole cast of the One Team can just see what a fantastic leader you are in a space that's so important to all of us. So there we have it. Annie Sommazzi leading the environmental change agenda for Broadland and South Norfolk, an inspirational female leader in the week of International Women's Day, and an all-round thoroughly great person. Thanks, Annie.
Thank you.